she joined the Caregiving Support Network, we started reaching out to her regularly, giving her that phone call where she could vent or cry or laugh or talk about caregiving or not, whatever she needed. And then sending in, some home-cooked meals and a house cleaning service just to give her a little break, just a breather, so that she could do anything for herself, something for herself. And long story short, she ended up being able to go out in the community. She met a really amazing guy, and they ended up getting together. They have a little built-in family, and she now is surrounded with this whole local infrastructure that is helping her take care of her mom now. And just to see her smile and to see her mental health improve over those couple years that we were with her. And we still keep in regular contact with her, but she doesn't need us, which is the goal eventually, to plug them so into that local community.
Americans are capable of achieving extraordinary things when they have the freedom and opportunity to do so. This is American Potential.
Hey everyone, welcome to the American Potential Podcast. I'm your host, David Fromm. People weren't made to live in isolation. Sure, some of us might be more social than others, but deep down, everyone really craves a connection on some level. For many, though, isolation isn't something they choose. It's something that comes with the role of caring for a loved one with a medical condition. Being a caregiver can be both emotionally and physically exhausting. Breaks are rare unless someone steps in to help. Today's guest knows this firsthand. She and her dad cared for her mom and experienced the challenges that often come with the job. Out of that experience, she created a network dedicated to supporting the people who support others. This group focuses on meeting caregivers' real needs, whether that's arranging for someone to sit with their loved one so they can go run an errand without worry, or simply offering to pray with them. She wanted caregivers to know they are seen, valued, and not alone. I want to welcome to the podcast Beka Dowhy, who started Caregiver Support Network. Beka, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, David. Thank you so much for having me today. It's great to be here.
Yeah, I'm super excited to talk about this great thing that you're doing. So let's start out like how you kind of got into the, I'd call it caregiver space. I mean, it was you were caring for your mom along with your dad. So tell me about your mom and maybe just first, like, what was she like and what was it like for you growing up?
Yeah, well, I was born into caregiving. So the year that I was born, my mom was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And so growing up, I had the unique experience of just disability and caregiving being such a natural part of our daily life. And so my mom, first of all, was an incredible woman, such an example to me, to my dad, to our whole family, and everyone who came in contact. The first thing they would say is she has so much joy. Like, how does she have so much joy going through that kind of suffering? And I think that has her attitude and her faith have set the tone for our values at the Caregiving Support Network, how I've tried to live my life of even you can be going through the hardest thing you'll ever experience in your life, and you can still look for those moments of joy, and you can still look for the community that can come with that. And so growing up, I started very young with as far as the caregiving tasks go. I am the youngest of 5, and my siblings hate it when I say this, but I love saying I'm so much younger than them. I'm really not that much younger than them, but the closest in age is about 6.5 years older. So it just made sense in their stage of life and my stage of life for me to be the one to start taking over her care as she progressed in her multiple sclerosis. And so I remember being 10 years old, brushing her hair, and then starting to give her her meals. And that progressed very quickly to other more medically intense tasks. And then when my dad obviously had to work. And so when he was at work, I was her primary caregiver at home. And that started about when I was 16 or 17.
Oh, wow.
And so very much my daily routine was scheduled around my mom and everything that she needed. So wake up, give her breakfast, start my schoolwork, give her her pills. And I could go through, I still remember to this day, the exact times and how my life is regimented around her care. And despite the obvious age gap and generational differences between my dad and I, something we've realized looking back at our experience was that we were facing very similar challenges as caregivers, whether that was a youth or as a spouse. And so we can get into that more later, but that is what led us to starting the Caregiving Support Network.
Your mom had multiple sclerosis, as you said. Maybe can you just help folks understand like what that disease does and how it manifests? Because I think that's it helps explain like how the need of a caregiver in this case.
Absolutely. So multiple sclerosis in a nutshell is, and I'm sure any doctors listening to this will probably have notes to add. I'm not a doctor or medical professional by any means, but scars form on the myelin sheath that surround your nerves. And that blocks the signals between the brain and everywhere else in the body. So for me, if I want to pick up a glass of water, it's very easy for me to just do that without thinking about it. But for her, those lesions were blocking those receptors. And so that just led to a gradual breakdown of typical things that we take for granted, like walking. Walking is a big one. I remember her going from a cane to a walker to a wheelchair, and then to where even a wheelchair, she struggled to sit up because she just had no ability to do that on her own. She lost her ability to speak towards the end, just to swallow normal food. So she had a feeding tube. And you really just start losing every single ability in your body.
Yeah, I've had family members with MS, and it really is a diabolical disease because it is. It's like basically the electrical system of your body is being short-circuited slowly, and that it manifests in different ways, and it's different for different people, and it's just so tragic. And it's a hard one. It's a really hard one to watch a loved one suffer from. So as you watched your mom go through this and progress, and you took on more and more of the caregiving duties, like, how did that affect you?
It affected me big time. I mean, in every way. And this is where the heart of the Caregiving Support Network was born, because for my dad and I, we were being affected emotionally, obviously, seeing your loved one progress, or just suffer in general, even if it's not a distinct progression like it was for us. Just watching her suffer and feeling so helpless and not being able to do anything was very, very hard. Knowing that you'll likely lose your loved one before typical case that you would. So that's the emotional side of it. Spiritually, it was very hard on our faith in a lot of ways because we weren't able to necessarily plug into our church like we would have if she was well, because we were at home. So there was a point in time where my dad and I would shift off, and one of us would get a Sunday to go, one of us would stay home. Or at one point, it was like, we're doing church online because we can't go. And so spiritually, that was really tough. And then financially, all of our extra income was going to her. And I mean, even if you're privileged enough to have wonderful insurance, that's great. But there's a lot that insurance doesn't begin to cover. And that's a whole nother topic of how, our system's very broken. But all of our finances went to her. So you're drained in every single area, not to mention the lack of peer interaction. It's just very, very easy to immediately feel very isolated and very alone. Like nobody understands what you're going through. Even though that might not be the case, it certainly feels that way when you're within the same four walls every single day, day after day after day. And one example I like to give is that in 2020, with the pandemic happening and all the lockdowns that went around the country, people were going crazy because they couldn't leave their house. And for caregivers, that's our daily reality. Like, yes, it was more scary because we had, there's a disease there that's terrifying. No one wanted to get COVID, but that's the daily reality for a lot of caregivers, is just that intense isolation.
It's fascinating that you mentioned that, because as you were talking, I was thinking, wow, everybody got to feel this for a bit during COVID and the lockdowns. And, some of the emotions that you're talking about and the realities, like watching church online, for instance, are what a lot of us lived and thought were awful. or really hard to deal with. And, I think it affected different people psychologically and emotionally. And yet this was your reality. So, what were some of the things that you did to try to deal with that? How did you try to be healthy in your own way as you're caring for your mom?
Well, and there's a good and bad side to it. On the bad side, I would say as a caregiver, and I think my dad would vouch for this too, you're so and everything is all encompassing around your loved one. You're so focused on taking care of your loved one that any sort of health concerns or worries about our health immediately went to the back burner. So as far as like our own dentist appointments or doctor's appointments or, that's just physical, like forget emotional health. Like we didn't even have time to think about that because we were in such survival mode.
Yeah.
And if you have a loved one who is teetering, between life and death, and you're trying to make these life or death decisions and keep them going, you don't really have time to think about, oh, maybe I should go in for that teeth checkup or whatever. So that's the bad side of it. On the good side of it, we were very blessed to have a good community. And people from our church realized that we were there, which is something that a lot of caregivers don't experience. A lot of times the church doesn't even know that they're there. But we were fortunate to have people who would drop by with a meal, or I remember some really incredible women who would drop what they were doing. They'd come over and they'd bring a book and say, I'm going to read to your mom while she's in bed because that's something my mom loved. And you go outside and just be a kid. Like just go outside for 20 minutes. And those 20, 30 minutes was like my only break that week, just to know that my mom was taken care of and know that I could just go enjoy myself, enjoy some fresh air. And something as simple, it sounds so simple, right? Like 20 minutes, like who thinks about that, right? That's just a normal lunch break for us now. But when you're in that survival mode, that means everything. That's the difference between going another day or not.
I got to think that one of the real difficult aspects here is that the caregivers are so often unseen because they're
absolutely
in a house or an apartment with the person they're taking care of, and
absolutely
just kind of out of sight, out of mind to some people, especially if you're not really linked up with family and friends or church in your case. So so when did you start thinking about starting the Caregiving Support Network?
So I had the inspiration for it even back in high school. I think I was graduating high school when I was 17. I felt like God put it on my heart to work with people with disabilities. And I graduated college. My mom passed away, and I took a little sabbatical from everything caregiving and all of that. And just figuring out who I was post caregiving as a young adult took a little time, just because when my mom passed, I felt like the world had just crashed out from under me. But long story short, my husband and I were sitting on the couch one night, and he had grown up taking care of his nan and pop. And so we had that in common from the beginning of our relationship. And he knew how special my mom was to me and how important that was to me. And I told him that, and we had both built up quite a bit of nonprofit experience at that point. And I said, someday I would like to start this nonprofit for family caregivers. And because I know that there's a lot of us out there. I remember how alone I felt. And I just feel like this is something I have to do. But I want to do that someday. And he just looked at me and said, well, why wait? Why don't you do it right now? And so he gave me the the little boost I needed. And that was about 3 years ago, 2022. And we've been going ever since.
Really?
And
nice.
Yeah, I don't regret it at all. I'm so happy to be doing this. And just to speak to your point earlier, it is such a hidden community, but it's so massive. When we started looking at the stats, 1 in 5 Americans are family caregivers. That's over 53 million people. And that just totally blew my mind, because when you talk to a caregiver, it's like, I'm the only one going through this. I feel so alone because they're just in their houses, just doing the work. They don't have time to go find a community or build up a community. They're just trying to survive. And so I knew we could do better. I knew that we could do better and bring the community to their doorstep.
Well, I was just personally, I mean, it's fascinating. You say 1 in 5 people. That's a lot of people. But I think about it. I mean, my mother had some strokes a dozen years ago and lost her eyesight. Now she's walks, talks, gets around and stuff. About my dad, but she needs someone with her all the time. And so my dad is just with her all the time, and they're getting older and they're doing their thing. And but I'm always like, there's a constant need there. And I'm always like, wow, I'm so impressed with my dad because he's just, he's dedicated to the woman he loves and has been married to for over 50 years. And but it's just a constant grind. I mean, it's not always easy, and there's things that are difficult and people get frustrated with one another and want to break from one another and you don't really get that. And then I think about, I was talking to a gentleman who I worked in the same industry as, and all of a sudden he was kind of gone for a year and a half.
Wow.
And it was like, oh, well, he had to move back to where his parents were because his father just needed care and, eventually passed away. But he just kind of had to go and do that because that's what he was supposed to do. And it was like, wow, you just kind of checked out for a little bit, tended to this super important thing. And then now he's kind of back. And I was like, wow, that's really dramatic. But it's just the reality for so many people because we love them and we want to take care of them.
Absolutely.
So what are some of the things that you guys do to support caregivers?
Well, our number one goal was to bring them out of isolation because that is the worst problem I think that caregivers universally face. And that leads to super high depression rates and just very terrible stats as far as the mental health of caregivers is concerned. And so the first thing we do is we connect them to community. And that means bringing it to them, not the other way around. We're not telling them to go drive out to a support group. That doesn't work for most caregivers who are in their home. So we bring it to them. We assign them a prayer partner who is a volunteer who normally has gone through some sort of caregiving experience themselves, or they just have a heart for caregivers in some way. I like to say, if you're not a caregiver, you know one. And so it's affected everyone's life in some way, like you, even your dad. And so we connect them with someone who checks in on them regularly. And that is totally up to the caregiver, how often they want to be contacted. It's set by them, but we're there for them through everything. Even after caregiving as well, we continue walking with them because once you're a caregiver, you're a part of this community. And then secondly, we bring in practical help. And this is something I'm very, very passionate about. There are a lot of great organizations out there raising awareness of what caregivers go through. But when you send a caregiver a quiz that says, are you burnt out? Check the box, check these little BuzzFeed article quizzes or whatever, yes, they're burned out and they know that they're burned out. So while awareness is obviously important, we want it to do something that instantly changes the day-to-day life of a caregiver. So for us, that looks like maybe we're sending them a hot meal. Maybe we're partnering with a local cleaning company to come in and clean their home. Or maybe we're even hiring home care for them because often Medicare, Medicaid is very unreliable as far as staffing goes. So even if they have access to those hours, they're not getting them. And so to leave their house, they need someone to sit with their loved ones. So sometimes we'll cover that. So we're very, very focused on the practical day-to-day changes that we can make in their life. And then we're here, like I said, beyond. We're here for the grief and all the good and the messy, no matter what that looks like.
Yeah. Now, where are you guys located?
So we're headquartered in Blakesley, Pennsylvania. It's a little small town here in the middle of Northeast Pennsylvania, but we serve nationwide and our whole team is remote. We're all virtual. And our goal with our caregivers is always to plug them into their local community as well. That's very, very important to us because nothing can ever replace that local face-to-face connection.
Yeah. So how have you built like that kind of nationwide community, like network to be able to help people if they contact you?
So everything is run through our virtual hub. So caregivingsupportnetwork.org has everything there. If a caregiver wants to join the community, they can find info on doing that. If someone wants to fund the mission or pray for somebody, they can do that all through the website. And our team is incredible. Even though we're scattered, we're a very tight-knit team. We all have some kind of caregiving story, and we just love what we do. It's been so fun to see basically a family being formed. It feels like family a lot of the times between these caregivers. And one could be in Washington State, and one could be in California, one can be in Florida. And seeing them come together and support each other on really tough days because they get it is just really beautiful. And thanks to modern technology, we don't have to be in the same room with them.
Yeah.
Even though we wish we could be.
Yeah. Well, so I don't know, as we kind of have a few more moments to talk, but what are some stories from caregivers that you've heard?
Yeah. Well, I love to tell Lisa's story. She was the first caregiver that we got in contact with, and she was taking care of her mom on her own. And one thing she told us was that when she joined us, she just felt so alone. And she just felt like nobody in her life understood exactly what was happening, what she was going through. And she shared a room with her mom. And so if you have those moments where you just need a good cry or a good vent session, that wasn't happening for her because her mom was right there. And she loved her mom and didn't want her mom to feel bad or like a burden. Because that's what Lisa had chosen to do. She wanted to take care of her. And so she joined the Caregiving Support Network. We started reaching out to her regularly, giving her that phone call where she could vent or cry or laugh or talk about caregiving or not, whatever she needed. And then sending in, some home-cooked meals and a house cleaning service just to give her a little break, just a breather. So that she could do anything for herself, something for herself. And long story short, she ended up being able to go out in the community. She met a really amazing guy, and they ended up getting together. They have a little built-in family, and she now is surrounded with this whole local infrastructure that is helping her take care of her mom now.
Oh.
And just to see her smile and to see her mental health improve over those couple years that we were with her. And we still keep in regular contact with her, but she doesn't need us, which is the goal eventually, to plug them so into that local community that they don't need us as much. But that was really beautiful to see. And then one of the other stories that just came in this last week is I was talking to a caregiver named Dahlia, and she takes care of her husband who was paralyzed in a motorcycle accident. And we sent in a window cleaning service for her to get her windows cleaned. And she told me, she said, well, what I ended up doing while the window cleaners were there is I had a video that her daughter or son had sent her of her granddaughter doing a ballet recital from 3 or 4 months ago. And she hadn't had a chance to sit down and watch it. And she said, while these guys were cleaning my windows, I sat down and I got to watch my granddaughter's ballet recital. And she was like, that was the most precious gift.
Oh.
And it's just things like that. It's moments like that that keep us going and keep us on this trek, because if we can just make their day a little easier, then it's worth it.
Wow, that's truly doing the Lord's work, and truly supporting people who are really doing the Lord's work.
It's
that's
them.
pretty fabulous.
Yeah. It is.
Yeah, well, my heart's warm just listening to those stories. Those are pretty fabulous. I'm sure you have tons more. So
I could keep going for a while.
I know, I'm sure you could. I mean, we have a whole nother episode. It'd be fun. Well, hopefully we whetted people's appetite. And this is something I'm sure that plenty of the people who are listening to this or watching it, this is a reality in their lives, I'm sure. So
yeah.
If people would like to learn more about you all, where is the best place to go?
Yeah, please go to our website, caregivingsupportnetwork.org. We're also on Facebook and Instagram, but you can find out everything there through our digital home.
That's great, Beka. I really love that. The story of somebody who was dealing with just personal, a personal burden, but also a labor of love. But then taking something from that to make greater good in our community is, you should be commended for it, but it's a pretty fabulous thing. It's kind of a quintessentially American thing, really, that's how we keep, supporting one another and building great communities and hopefully a great society. So I'm appreciative for the work that you've done.
Thank you. And there's something we're missing when we're not bringing these caregiver stories to light, because they have some of the most mind-blowing, incredible testimonies and stories of perseverance and courage that you'll ever hear. And we're trying to make it a not hidden community anymore and bring them into the light.
Yeah, amen. That's fabulous. And I hope everybody goes to the website. Well, folks, if you like this episode and would like to stay connected with the podcast, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel, as well as following us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And always remember, liberty and freedom are easily taken for granted. Don't take it for granted. Go out there and defend freedom and liberty. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to American Potential. You may listen to more stories from Americans working every day to expand freedom and opportunity in their communities by visiting AmericanPotential.com.